also touch on those. We thought to say not to focus. I know we've discussed a lot about the Ufesta project, the major project, but we've also touched on other projects in other domains so as to share as much information with the portfolio committee and the public at large. Chair, the scope of our presentation is comprised of those six parts. We'll cover the general information, which is really the regulatory structures that governs Armscor. We'll look at our corporate performance, information, human capital management, looking at the resources in the form of human capital, corporate governance issues. We'll touch on that, PFMA compliance, where we'll also touch on the Auditor-General's findings and also our response as expected by the committee. We will then conclude with the financial performance. Chair, I think as I've stated our aim, I will not really spend time on that slide. I will move on straight to slide number 5. To also always remind ourselves that Armscor is a crucial statute. It's established in terms of the Armscor Act. We are wholly owned by the state, but quite importantly is that whilst we are a state entity, there is a provision in our act where we are able to do commercial work, of course subject to approvals from the shareholder, and that relates to what the chair was actually alluding to say more and more we are finding those commercial opportunities, which obviously talks to our revenue strategic outputs and objectives. So in terms of our responsibility, in the main, we are governed by the PFMA as well as the Companies Act. So we are a quasi, commercial entity in the sense that we are still, obligated to comply with the Companies Act in terms of fiduciary responsibilities that obviously the directors must adhere to, and obviously the reporting systems. The Minister of Defence and Military Veterans is the sole shareholder representing government. The Board of Directors is the accounting authority, and obviously below the board then there will be the executive committee that does the day-to-day execution of the work. In terms of our mandate, Chair, it's obviously to meet the requirements of the Department of Defence in an effective and an efficient way, making sure that what we do, there is value for money to the client. Core functions or expectations from Armscor is to acquire defence material, which is why we are known as a acquisition agency on behalf of the Department of Defence, to provide research, operational research, to make sure that the equipment, the systems that the DoD requires, if we can't buy some of those, because it's not always easy or cheaper to buy, we develop, and hence we've got a huge R&D portfolio, which also resides our intellectual property. I will move on, Chair, to the next slide. At a glance, that's a geographical location of all our facilities. As you will know, Chair, that our head office is based in Pretoria. We share the building with the DoD, and our other facilities, which is mainly R&D facilities, they are located in Pretoria West. That's a Gerotech facility where they do vehicle testing. It's in Centurion. That's where we have a Protechnic, Hazmat, and Ecotech facility, where they do mainly, where we reside there, some of our labs and some of our research institutes. In Priska, Chair, in the Northern Cape, that's where Alcanpan is based. That's where we do high caliber, ammunition testing. That's the range that we have. We have foreign clients that are utilizing that facility. We've seen over the last year or so that we are coming back to business again, Chair. Just year under review, we have had 16 different tests that we were conducting there, coming from the COVID years where the activity dropped down to about 2 tests that we do just shortly after, before COVID. In Cape Town, Chair, we've got the IMT, which is the Institute for Maritime Technology, as well as managing the dockyard, which is the ship repairment facility on behalf of the SA Navy. Chair, I'll move on to depict the reporting structure. I will not spend much time on this slide, but at least you can see graphically how are we reporting to the shareholder. The shareholder is the Minister of Defense. Below her is the board of directors that actually make sure that we execute, and then they stand in as the accounting authority. Below the main board, we've got subcommittees, 5 subcommittees of the board: Audit and Risk Committee, and Human Resources and Social Ethics Committee. Those are statutory committees, as you will know them. But as part of the expansion program to ensure that we try and support the industry, we generate revenue. A few years back, that committee, Technology Industry Support and Sustainability, known as TIS, was established. We also have an acquisition committee, which looks at tenders up to a particular threshold, so as to ensure that we don't clog the board with some of the tenders, and making sure that we deliver speedily to the client. So it was created as such. So certain, tenders up to a certain value, they will then go to the acquisition committee. Then recently, Chair, with the new board, like the Chair was indicating, because we've been trying to support the military veterans to the extent possible, but it was then felt, some of our, activities were not well coordinated. Maybe we needed to establish a military veterans committee. And fortunately, within the board, we had quite a number of military veterans who are also representing the organization. So it was quite easy for us. I must say, Chair, it's beginning to take shape, that committee. We've been engaging quite extensively with the military veterans, and we are identifying certain key projects, basically looking at our core capabilities, where we can assist internally based on our strengths. Chair, within the CO structure, you will have the Armscor reporting to the CEO, and the executing functions. Chair of the executive committee will be mainly acquisition and supply chain management, the research and development department, as well as the dockyard. We see those as executing functions, and then below them there will be support functions that cuts across to ensure that the business delivers. The role of the company secretary, and as well as the chief audit executive, internal audit, as you will know, they will always have a reporting line to the board for governance purposes. Dealing with the corporate performance, in the main, we look at it's composed rather by the 2 deliverables. The first part of our delivery is in terms of making sure that we deliver on our signed SLA with the DoD, where they give us specific goals and outputs. So we track those, and then we ensure we get measured on those, and also looking at the organizational strategic goals. And then we track those during the year. But over and above, as you will know, Chair, that the Chair has indicated, there's a whole focus of outwardly looking in terms of saying, how do we extend the services and the capabilities of Armscor to the rest of government, as well as we do commercial work with private entities, based on our core skills and core strengths. So those outputs as well, they are growing. So I'm sure when we come back next year, we'll be reporting quite on a number of projects and some successes and inroads that we're beginning to make. Chair, starting with the SLA goals that we have contracted with the Department of Defense, there's 6 core main goals, broken down into the first goal being the capital defense material acquisition, where we are managed or measured in terms of contract management, in terms of making sure that what the requirements that we receive, we convert them into contracts that we place sometimes with ourselves because we've got research institutes, but in the main, it's with the rest of the industry. Chair, as you can see there, that the contracts, the target was to say all the projects that we receive, the measure was, the target was 95% of that, of those projects must be placed, converted into contract. And as you can see that, Chair, on all the requirements that we received in the year under review, we achieved 100%. All those were converted, and we contracted industry in that year under review. The cash flow management, Chair, so we will receive the funding for those projects, but is to make sure that with the cash flow that we receive, the target was 95, we exceeded on that goal. Moving on to the second goal, Chair, the system support, that is relates to the operational budget, the maintenance funding. The target was 95. We missed it marginally. We achieved 90%. And Chair, there's a narration below that explains how we missed, but we didn't say, well, we missed, but then it was no opportunity to perform. We rather said, let's accept we missed it, notwithstanding the fact that some of the financial authorities that we require before we place these orders came in late in the financial year. As a result, we could not place those contracts. Precisely, Chair, issues of budget cuts comes into play because the department also has to now reprioritize. You know, although they might have had this plan, but because of the shortage in funding, then they will then have to sit and consult, and that's where sometimes the delays comes from. Chair, I will move on to the third goal, the time it takes to place those orders. The target was 95 days. We were able to achieve 86 days placement of those orders. So in that category, Chair, we achieved those objectives. And these goals, Chairs, are measured both by our internal audit and the Auditor-General. Goal number 4, Chair, I think this we did not achieve, but it's regarding deep performance. It's a consequence of overachieving, mainly relating to the successes that we derive from the Biro project in the main. I must say, Chair, the contractor really, and this is one of the projects that we had that was really seamless in terms of the execution, and we were able to discharge these deep credits in the previous financial year, and obviously there was little now to dispose in this current financial year, hence the drop. But I must say, Chair, there is a challenge. We could have maybe done slightly better there, but I don't think we will have still achieved. There were some delays that we experienced with the hydrographic vessel project, where we had to intervene to make sure that where there were cash flow issues by the contractor in relation to its subcontractors, we were able to intervene and mediate it and find ways within the whole compliance framework to try and alleviate those pressures without actually letting them off the hook from their contractual obligation. And I must say, Chair, comforting with that project that bulk of the components were bought by the subcontractors, and also some were already delivered before they experienced some of the challenges. And we went to Sandok Astral Yard. We saw the equipment, it's kept in storage, in safe storage, I must say, and some has already been fitted, like your engines are fitted. They were busy fitting the air conditioning system. So there's quite a lot of projects after our intervention, and they are on catch up as we speak. Chair, the fifth goal relates to the management and execution of defense technology projects, research projects as well. That's a whole DRDP funding. You'll see later, Chair, that we had projected a deficit position of 16 million because at some stage we were not so sure that we were still going to receive our allocation for those projects. But then right to towards the end of quarter 3 of the year under review, we then received the funding, and hence our performance, Chair, was really at that level. Chair, and then I must then make a correction there, Chair. You will see there that it was 50, but the correct figure that we had updated the slide after the Auditor-General audited us. It moved from 50 to 51, but I think it's still marginally, it makes really no much difference. The last goal, Chair, relates to the performance of the dockyard. There again, Chair, we had marked ourselves internally because the Planning, Strategy and Performance Department under compliance is responsible for the measurement of these goals before even the internal audit comes in. We had measured ourselves, and internal audit agreed with the 50% mark, but when the AG audited us, that figure jumped from 50 to 75%, which is not very often, Chair. You get audited upwards, but it was just one of those lucky moments for us, so to speak. Chair, moving on to the strategic corporate performance. Chair, upon realizing that there were budget cuts facing the department, we started looking as Armscor to say, how do we ensure that we sustain ourselves? And hence these objectives came about after we have done our strategic, analysis in terms of where we want to play, looking at our vision and our mission. We came up with these 4 main core outputs, which I like to call them objectives. One was around output around revenue generation. So if we continue to generate the revenue, at least we will offset the constant decline in funding. And that was as a result of that, looking at the commercial activity and the business development department was established as such to ensure that we drive that agenda. And I must say, the current board, accelerated that journey for us, and we ensure that, Chair, that we even, look beyond just the borders of the country. We look at partnerships, we look at, the requirements from other countries, especially in the continent, to say we need to go there and capture that market. And we're beginning to do that, Chair. We'll talk about it later. But again, Chair, those revenue target objectives, as you can see, for the group revenue, the target was 1.4 billion. We achieved almost 1.5 billion. The revenue for existing facilities for R&D was 206. They achieved 269. For the business development division, Chair, we started on a low base, Chair. There are some reasons with it, because previously we had very ambitious targets that were linked with us assisting Denel with their initiatives many years back, but we never achieved those targets. But we are seeing an increase, because we are beginning now to do work for other state departments. As you might have seen, Chair, we just delivered, rather for the year under review, we delivered 3 light utility helicopters for the South African police services, and those are some of them, because we currently have an SLA with the SAPS, and they pay us a fee for the work that we do on their behalf. But I must say, it's not a huge markup that we charge for them, but we're saying they must at least cover our cost and make sure we generate a little bit of, but I mean, bearing in mind that they're still a government entity. But we are seeing, and we also delivered the UAVs for them, and they paid us our fee. So these are some of the initiatives. I think with the other agreements, SLAs that are in place now for border management or authority, we have just concluded another SLA with PRASA and many other state entities, both in South Africa and outside the borders of South Africa, in the neighboring states, that is to say, Chair. But as we were driving this revenue growth, Chair, we just said we should not lose sight of the internal inefficiencies. So where there's wastage of resources, we need to ensure that we keep an eye at all times. So all executives and senior managers have a target in making it around cost reduction and cost management. To check to say all our activities, is it necessary to embark or to travel to certain, both local and abroad, and we ask ourselves, and do you need to send two people to go and do acceptance testing from the same department? So those are questions, and all the approvals for international travel from the NCOP and below, they get approved at an EXCO level, so that you motivate, you show us the value, and then obviously we even question to say, why do you have to stay for 5 days, yet you are attending a conference that will last for 2 or 3 days? So those are some of the questions we ask, and then we make certain adjustments. So we're trying to manage the cost and try to live within our means. Chair, we had a target around efficient and effective delivery. Was one of our criticism at the time, to say time it takes to contract, and obviously the feedback we're getting from the client, getting frustrated with us. We take too long. So we then set ourselves those targets around efficient and effective delivery. But we were saying an ERP solution will ensure that we have a seamless procurement processes, end-to-end processes. That with that automation, we could cut a lot of inefficiencies in the process. And the chair, like he has already alluded, that we are at an advanced stage, Chair, in terms of our procurement process for the ERP solution, and we are, confident that by the end of this month of October, we should be in a position to appoint a preferred service provider that will then implement the modules that we have identified under this project, Chair. Part of that, Chair, was to say, let's make sure that, because our IP as well, Chair, we did not have a unit that was solely responsible and guarding and ensuring that as we execute these projects with the rest of the industry, we make sure that we preserve, we demand, those data packs back at the end of the project, so that we keep them, in a safe register we can account. And that was the finding with the AG many years back. But I must say, Chair, it's a very, professionally managed. We're quite satisfied, and the AG has given us a nod as well in terms of that ERP management, and obviously the commercialization. It's what now we are looking at, making sure that we find opportunities, where we can commercialize, because out of that, once you commercialize, it also talks to that revenue growth. Stakeholder management, Chair, we say, look, sometimes, we need to look at our blind spots, and that gives us an opportunity every second year where we get evaluated in terms of our performance by our clients. I mean, then we will have an independent company that comes in and then surveys client being the DOD, the industry players, and then there's various categories of our stakeholders that we then get interviewed, and then we get a score. So we marginally dropped. The idea is to always improve. We marginally dropped by 0.1%, but still we still got a score of above 70, which is quite comforting, or 7.2 out of 10, 70. Chair, where we dropped, you see on the staff turnover, and I thought let's give you a narration of where are those skills, in which areas. They were in the main, in the IT and cyber, and there's a reason for that, Chair. There are companies that are coming, overseas companies, and some of them will be based here in Cape Town. Companies like Amazon that are really aggressive in the market. I mean, I know a few people that whose salaries, they just doubled and these people were good and high earners. So we have seen that, and with the recent cyber attacks, the banks have also started to recruit these and compete for the cyber security, IT security specialists. But Chair, as you know, there's an intervention to establish our own cyber defense capability. We're currently busy with the hardware, procurement of the hardware, and we'll be having a SOC very soon. So we still have a core, and there are some targets that were identified for ourselves by the AG. They are quite pleased with our progress. So I won't spend much time to this slide. Suffice to say, it gives you a holistic picture in terms of the portfolio that we are managing of about 17.2 billion. But of course, some of it, you will know, it relates to the project we faced there. But still, we still have an active contract that we are managing with Daniel, whilst there is, in the recent past, there was not much happening, but there are some positive signs that, phase one at least will be concluded, and there's an agreement with the client in that regard. Chair, maybe just to focus on the narration at the bottom in red, that all we are saying that the continued decrease in funding allocation for projects in the SDA, like the question that was raised earlier on by Mr. Mare, has resulted in only 8 capital projects with a funding allocation for the year. A total of 22 capital projects were being executed due to funds being carried over from other financial years, previous financial year. Cash flow performance, Chair, as I've reported on the SLA, but just to say we executed 2.2 billion for the year. Moving on, Chair, to the operation.
I'm sure you're not going to dwell on those slides
yes.
that are coming because you have just taken the presentation on them, remember?
Moving on, Chair, we've just listed the projects according to the arms of services. And moving on, Chair, all we are saying here on slide number 15, the IPV project, the Byro project is on track, Chair. The last vessel will be delivered January 2024. The first one has already been delivered, as Chair, you are aware about it. The utility helicopters for SAPS, I've touched on it. We delivered 3 for under year review, as well as the drones that they've ordered were also end of last month. The mass field feeding capability, it was now fully and finally delivered to the client. Transportable camping capability on the next slide, it was fully delivered under year review. The militarized operational earth moving equipment, fully delivered under year review. Refurbishment of the 4 tactical mobile radars, they were delivered by March 2023. Ejection seat crew project, it was finally delivered to the Air Force. Acquisition of mobile water provisioning plant, it was also delivered. Chair, I won't spend time on the hydrographic vessel. I've already indicated that there is a catch-up program. I think we will lose in the region of about 10 to 12 months that we will lose to the project. The contractor is committed, and we are managing them that in 2025, beginning of 2025, they will be able to deliver the project. I will not touch on the multi-mission patrol vessels. The new generation short range, all we are trying to say, Chair, that with the challenges at DNL, we have found other alternatives, working with the industry to still deliver on this project, on the A-data short range air-to-air missile. Project Wufester, Chair, I will not say much. Suffice to say, PCB did take place, and deviations were considered. It will now go through the various approval committees, acquisition committees, right up to the level of Minister, Chair. ground, the GBED project, Chair, all we are saying, they've delivered on the first 2 phases. They are busy with the 3rd phase, which they will conclude April next year. The radios, Chair, all radios, I mean, the phases are complete. The system performance has been verified and accepted. We have tactical radios, Chair, that are interoperable right now, and we are of the view that, Chair, this is a major breakthrough because now all arms of services can use same radios, and they are interoperable. They communicate with one another. The huge benefits, huge spin-offs, huge savings for the client, and that's our IP. Chair, moving ahead, just to touch on R&D, I'll be quick to say the R&D, they execute about 184 million worth of contracts, as I've indicated previously, and for those reasons I've indicated, they were able to invoice just over almost close to 60%, and then the commercial effort is to the tune of 109 million. I will not spend time, Chair, on the Alcanpan. I think I've touched on it earlier on. Suffice to say, there are a number of projects that we are working with the industry, the likes of RDM, some companies, foreign companies, on trying to improve, the performance of the ammunition and making sure that we use technology to achieve that. Similarly, Flamingo works very closely with the likes of RDM and Alcanpan, because they are trying to improve the performance of some of our artillery using innovative technological methods, so as to make sure that we spend less, but we use the existing IP and existing capability and improving the performance and the accuracy of our ammunition. I will not spend much, Chair. I know if I had scientists around and engineers, they get excited with some of these projects. Chair, I will move on to Ecotech. Again, all we are trying to illustrate, it's a facility dedicated to the defense SNDF, but again, we are trying to find modernizing, finding new innovative ways to improve the efficiency and the performance, and we then keep track of the technological advancements in the industry, and we try to make sure that it benefits the client environment. Similarly, with IMT, which is the Institute of Maritime Technology, Chair, our major, system is the VistaNet, which is assisting us in the surveillance of our coastal borders. This is a locally built capability, Chair. Real time, you can see what's happening on the coastal borders with the help of the radars that are strategically located within the SANDF. Some of those radars will be with the likes of SA Weather Services, but we work in collaboration and in conjunction with those. UBRD, Chair, I will not spend much time except to say we are continuously improving the performance of this technology. Protechnic, Chair, similarly, we are finding new ways of detecting the chemical threats using the UAVs, and we are hoping that these UAVs, they will interface with some of the monitoring systems that we have that are monitoring the toxic gases, such that, you have this ability of this early warning using technology. So these are some of the technologies that we're coming with, which will in turn act as a force multiplier. Instead of deploying, you can have these sensors and monitors, it gives you that early warning. Part of that, Chair, is the collaboration effort with other institutes worldwide, as we have indicated. We've sent few of our scientists to the likes of the USA, where they are looking at various methods and learning new things, Chair. Dockyard Chair, I will not spend much time except to say the committee, we were able to host a committee at the Dockyard a few weeks ago, and there's a lot of effort in reviving the Dockyard, in bringing in technology, CNC machines, where we can at least some components we can produce and manufacture at the Dockyard Chair. And for the rest of the SANDF, there are certain things that we can do for ourselves. But again, Chair, as you have given us some of the tasking to look at the commercial effort, and that's the commercialization that we are currently back on the drawing board to say how best can we sweat the Dockyard facility, whilst at the same time deliver the service to the SANDF. And I was glad with the pronouncement by Chief Navy, where he said, look, you can go ahead. It's always been part of the 2007 agreement, as long as it does not, all those commercial efforts do not interfere with the operations of the SA Navy. Chair, I will not spend much time on these next two slides. It was just to say on the CSI, corporate social responsibility, what are we sort of projects and where are those projects? You can see, Chair, we've got a widespread in terms of for all the provinces, but we are saying we are trying now to have flagship high impact projects. So we will be looking at those interventions. Predominantly in the STEM subjects. Chair, this slide just depicts a graphical depiction of our staff composition by race, by gender. Chair, I'll move on to the AG's overall audit outcomes. So that's just at a high level, the summary of all the areas that were covered by the AG. You can see, Chair, in terms of the improvement area was the misstatements, but was hoping that with all these legacy systems that we are using, different system, financial reporting, with the ERP, we should be maintaining those improvements. And then where we dropped, Chair, was the revenue collection, which should be easy. But, Chair, it related to a pilot contract that we had with a foreign country, where they gave us a small contract. But as we delivered and executed, but then there were some technical difficulties that we encountered, and then that delayed the payment. But because we were still hoping for a much bigger contract, so hence we were sort of sensitive in terms of how we're dealing with them. But that money has subsequently been recovered. It was a tune of 5 million rand. Another area, Chair, is it falls under procurement and contracts, but it's local content. So it's small in the facilities orders where, you know, they took their eyes off the ball as they were contracting. They did not ensure that with those fabrics or textiles that they were procuring, it conforms with the requirements of DTI on the local content. We try to argue and say, yeah, but these are small amounts, but they say, no, the pattern is what they are worried about. And again, the enforcement of the supply chain, particularly at the facilities where they've got smaller procurement offices. Effort, Chair, we put in an effort around that. Training has been intensified. You will know, Chair, previously we reported about some of the irregularities at the Dockyard. Consequence management was taken, and some of those employees eventually were dismissed, and some of those cases are sitting with military police. But we have appointed a new procurement professionals, starting with the senior manager position. Chair, in conclusion, I will deal with the financial performance, but just to say, Chair, these two pie charts gives you an indication of our funding position, Chair. As you will know, in the previous financial year, 80% was coming directly from the transfer payment. Year under review, it has gone down to 78%. So there's more, you know, there's an increase on the revenue generation, but still, Chair, it's still high. We would like to drop it so that we become much more self-sustainable. But I must say there are some facilities within the R&D that are 100% self-funded. Chair, this is just you know, the narration around what I've touched on in terms of the surplus position of 168, and then we say what are the net surplus contributors. Chair, is the savings in the personnel cost to a tune of 11%, and then the decrease in our expenditure has dropped. Chair. I will then move on to the very last slide, Chair, where we are looking at the total group shareholder value that has increased by 6%. And we conclude by saying, Chair, that the group maintained a healthy liquidity and solvency position as audited by the AGSA. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think the report, I would say the same thing that which I said when we were dealing with the DOD, that some of these issues come back as agenda items and for in-year monitoring. And the purpose of this exercise is to check if whether you were able to respond to our concerns in the previous year. That's a year of reporting, and in order to forecast into the new year. And as you know, my pet subject, I'm happy the chair is here. I'll repeat my concern, Chair, and I'm sure at some point you'll amend the way you report on your performance to assist our oversight committee. I mean, we believe that in enhancing accountability, improves effectiveness. Let me tell you where my issue is. I will repeat it even today. Is that your performance indicators, process forecast, and I'm an oversight committee, and they don't assist me. For example, you would say capital requirements converted into orders placed. That's a process. It says very little. How are these capital, these contracts that arise from this arrangement performing, the outcome? And then we go on to say, cash flow. You are saying execution of these contracts is measured through actual cash flow. Okay, and it's also not assisting me as an oversight committee. What is this money buying? We see there was cash flow, there was the funds moved from you, but we're not seeing anything back. What value we got, so that we are then able to measure the performance. Has R1 achieved a R1 value? Now on this DM, it doesn't assist me. And then they would also say that percentage of DOD system support and procurement requirements converted into orders placed. And they would say percentage of execution of technology requirements measured in terms of orders that have been awarded. And it ends there, full stop. Now, I'm an oversight committee. How do I interact with your performance information? It says nothing, is quiet. and then you give yourself 98%, 100%. I mean, yeah, you've received requirements and have converted into orders. It's easy, it's process. But as to how those contracts, how you are managing those contracts, you know, that's where the public receives, you know, a benefit as to whether the money they've given you has actually delivered anything to them. You remember that thing came up when we said your responsibility as Armscor is to deal with acquisition requirements of the Department of the Defense Force, maintenance requirements of the Defense Force, disposal requirements of the Defense Force. That's your main mandate, right? And these contracts must be speaking to that. But how these are achieving in terms of the actual maintenance of the platforms, the actual acquisitions, you know, and we always see CFO, it's more platforms, more aircrafts. When we came here, we had, for example, I don't know how many Oryx. I think we had 11 Oryx, 17 Oryx. That was Oryx or yeah, Oryx. Yeah, we had 17 Oryx out of 39 that could grace the sky. Today we only have 6. And we had Roifag, I think 11 Roifag, and today we only have 1 or 2 that can grace the sky. You know, the C-30 and so on and so forth. The Crepens and so on. Numbers, when we came in, we had at least more that were serviceable than when we are about to exit. DM, that's our concern. We have not added in any value as this committee in terms of putting pressure on both the department and this entity that is supporting the department on acquisition, maintenance, and disposal to do the things. So that's where we sharply differ. I mean, the committee has expressed it. Sharply differ with you. You report, and then you go to the military, and it's poor performance. They can't. It would be poor. They can't. The flying hours would always be low. I mean, they've reduced them to about 12,000 from 15,000 at some point to 12,000, and they, well, of course, they say, yeah, at least we can meet those flying hours. But DM, they can meet them because they were reduced from 15 to 10 to 12. The sea hours were also reduced, but they can't even meet the current target. If you ask them, platforms, they're not serviceable. Serviceability of all these platforms. And the fellows who are supposed to be piloting these aircraft are living in droves because they need to be in the air to maintain the conditions of their license, and they're leaving the Defense Force. As we speak, I mean, if you have so many aircrafts that are not in the air, that are grounded, you ask yourself, where are the people who are supposed to be piloting this? They've all left. I think with General Kond will be lying if you are saying, well, they are drinking tea, you know, waiting for this to grace the sky at some point. That's the seriousness of the problem. Our naval fleets, yes. I mean, frigates. Well, how many we have? 4, only 1, and the submarine is 3, only 1 serviceable. It explains why we can only be in the do coastal patrols instead of 4 times a year. Even the 4 times a year, Chairperson, the 4 times a year was a reduced target. Was to say at least 1 in a quarter, but they can only meet 2. Why? Because of the serviceability of the platforms, the naval platforms, not available. Now, you are here. We see this, and it pains us. It pains us. So how can we see your performance, the defense force restoring its capability? And we can't measure that because there's this thing. And the last point on the work in progress. When we came in there, we received the first report we received in 2018, 2019. I went to him. He said, the information is there. The department was qualified for 2 consecutive years on work in progress. I said, but why is it difficult for the Department of Defense to report on work in progress? What is that in the first place? Oh, well, they said, no, man, we can't report on this because the engine is there, that part is there. No, but it's not your problem. It's the AG's report, it's the AG's problem. You just tell them that there is part, how they go between those various components is their indaba, and how they report on them is their indaba. Yours is to show them. We went to advocate, but not information is there, and we wondered why the DOD had to be qualified just on this. Now what? Let me get now the last point on this. Then the AG says, now that we got the information on the work in progress, we can competently report on the warfare step project. Now we know, and the UFS project, how much we spent, how much is being owed, where it is, and so forth. Because now we said the department shall report on work in progress, and they're now reporting in it. So now you say, but why is the DOD, why was DOD not interested in AG, assisting them in monitoring, auditing the work in progress? And even the DOD was shooting itself in the foot for not wanting AG to move into the space. Only now we can speak, confidently on some of the areas, simply because we now have insight into those things, and we can come back to the DOD and say, but why is this thing happening? Why is that not happening? So basically, so I'm sorry to have taken this time, colleagues, but I'm saying with our last, maybe we'll not have this interaction again, and on the annual report, because it will be presented in the sixth parliament, on this report in the sixth parliament. But if you could just meet the parliament at least halfway, for parliament to be able to appreciate your performance in relation to value for money. That would be my comments, colleagues, on this area. I thought I can't say it more. I was happy you were here, but I thought I must say it in front of you. So that when you retreat, you go back and say, is this the best way of accounting to Parliament? Because you are saying it. All right, issues, colleagues. I'm sorry, Mare.
Chairperson, yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Chairperson, you have started the process fantastically, and I think you have summed it up, our sentiments and all that. So I can only support you in that, because Dr. Dexter, I mean, our objective for Armscor is not to become another state-owned enterprise. It is what the chairman has said. That is our first requirement: procurement, agency, and dockyard and research. So, and if we can't translate that into how our defense force is improving, then we must say, do we need a Armscor, or must Armscor be sent to state-owned enterprises and we are leaving you? We can do our procurement ourselves in the defense force. That is the asset test for the existence of Armscor and the ongoing of Armscor. Because otherwise you are in the wrong department. You are the wrong committee. We are here for the defense force, and all that we want to see is how you translate your mandate into us improving, as the chairperson has said. So with that in mind, obviously we need feedback on all the contracts. You remember, Advocate, when we went to Waterkloof, you said that no, contracts are in place for the Grippens, and there were two. One was standing there on exhibition, and the other one was flying. That is still the only two of the 27. So, in other words, our expectation that we were told is a chalk and cheese. Because what can we do with two Grippens? We can just as well sell it. It's of no value whatsoever. In the meantime, we know that our caravan fleet is grounded. We know that our Pilatus aircraft that we need in Langebaanweg, only about 6 or 7 of them is serviceable. How can we train our pilots if we don't have maintenance on our aircraft? Those are the things that is important. If we read in the Defence Whip that the Falcon aircraft of 21 Squadron is grounded because of service contracts, then that is a concern. Because remember, you don't tell us that. We read it in the media. And that is an embarrassment if we must read those things in the media. And you need to inform us on that. And I mean, I'm talking about the you know, if you talk about contracts, I've heard the last week that the Air Force HQ's air conditioning system, that contract has also not been concluded. Now, whether that's your responsibility or not, I think, Chair, you know, there's sometimes it is Armscor's responsibility, sometimes it's not. Somewhere along the line, we'll have to rationalize and say, you know, if the Defence Force then can't do it themselves, again, why do we need you? So then we must define what kind of contracts you are. Only in terms of capital expenditure, only in terms of prime mission equipment, but nothing else. So then we can hold them accountable. But that decreases, you know, the value that you have got for the Defence Force. If we look at the board, Chairperson has opened the gate. In all of this, Dr. Dexter, we must read it, and I know that you are there, not because you have decided it is so many board members, but we must really look at the value for money. Because if you look at the current financial statements, the annual report, you guys are earning a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you are earning a lot more than when you were a member of parliament. And then you ask, you know, what is the back-to-back delivery from that organization? And then you add all the other board members' expenses. And then you say, is that really value for money? Is that the purpose of Armscor? And I agree with the chairperson in that regard. So we need to know also, you know, how much you guys, we can see now how much you have earned for attending committees. But we know that there are other expenses like allowances, like travel and accommodation, like S&T, which is not part of that. So can you provide us with that information as well, please? I want to ask whether at one stage there was a problem with the SDA versus GDA funding in terms of rollovers for multi-year projects. Has that been sorted out now? Because at one stage we were given the indication that yes, it has been sorted out, so you can now have multi-year commitments, because that was part of the problems. That when the money is been allocated and appropriated, then it's already June, and then it's too close to the end of the next financial year, and then you can't commit yourself to capital projects. So where do we stand in that regard? And then just on Hoefyster, you have talked about phases, but you haven't talked about what it actually means. Are you talking about 1 battalion? Hoefyster vehicles? What's about 130, 140 vehicles? Is that what we are talking about? Has that been, is that the changes that we are talking about? Because if that is the case, Chairperson, then we must know that we have to rely on the rattles for more years. And that means that we have to look at the maintenance and the upgrading of the rattles. That is the practical implications of that. So in other words, it is not the silos that we are just looking at the one silo, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. It's a holistic picture. And then it must relate back to our objective with you and say, how do you reinforce and reposition and re-strengthen the Defence Force for each primary target. That's your whole purpose, in my opinion. All the other things are nice to be. If you can't comply with your primary responsibility, then, as I said, you are with the wrong committee. Then you need to go to Minister Gordon. Because then you are not, then you're wrong. Then we can do it ourselves, with the greatest of respect. Chairperson, that's it from my side. I'd appreciate it. But anyway, in the meantime, I want to thank you for at least striving, with Alkanpan and with all the others. In my opinion, we need you. In my opinion, we need to get the funding right. But if it is that we are seeing next week or the 1st of November, a reduction in the commitment of this year's budget, then I suppose it's going to impact you directly. So, in other words, we need to know actually now already, how are we going to position ourselves with what we know is coming on the 1st of November? And then that's the consequences of that, obviously, next year and following on. Thank you, Chair.
No, it's fine. The questions you asked, if they don't get answered today, we'll still resubmit them in writing, because so that they don't get lost in the process. All right, colleagues, are there any other comments? Let me just take Tabu, I'll come back to General, and then Mafanya. Thank you very much in that one.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I also want to agree with you on your remarks. But Chair, I think we must be consistent in how we deliberate around the issues around Armscor. Maybe if we can recall, it was us who said they must take commercial opportunities for their own sustenance. Now, it can be us again today who say, but we are focusing more on commercial dispensation as opposed to your responsibility, which is to support the defense force. And I'm saying this partially agreeing that that is their first mandate. And they should be able, like I asked the AG, how does the AG assist the DOD in resolving their challenge? They should be seized with that particular question. How best do they ensure that they execute their mandate, which is to support the South African National Defence Force? In this case, the arms of services that we have mentioned. But it also boils down to the issue of availability of resources. We know they had a challenge and they must come clear on it. Their delay in terms of ensuring that the contracts are available for them to ensure that those platforms where resources are available, they are serviceable on time. It's also a problem. It's something that they need to come clear about. And between them and the DOD, there must be that mutual engagement around our planning. Because part of the problem...
Sorry, the DM is taking leave. Thank you very much, DM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My apologies, Jack.
Okay, bye-bye, DM. What I was saying is that, Chair, the issue of planning between the arms of services as well as Armscor, it's what we have picked up to be a problem. Because if they plan in silos, we will have the same challenges that we are experiencing. And we can't say they should not report on the target they've put for themselves. If they've achieved, they've achieved. But the problem remains. The problem that the arms of services are faced with are not being addressed. And that picture does not help if the arms of services that they're supposed to be serving are struggling. So they need to go back to a drawing board ensure that there's a integrated planning between themselves and the arms of services, so that they know that in the next financial year, this is what is expected for them to service arms of services, and what resources will be made available to ensure that is executed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mafani, I'll come to you.
Thank you very much. I think my colleague here, Honorable Mutle, has covered me. The issue is that we shouldn't forget too easy. We know we are from a situation where the NEL literally collapsed, and to a point where they couldn't even pay salaries of staff. And the survival for Armscor depended mainly on Armscor, on DNL. And by the time we did our oversight at DNL, it automatically told us that even Armscor is on the verge of collapse. And the reality, because with DNL they've lost skilled people. And with the minister, Mr. Kodan, to say they are having a turnaround strategy. Whilst they were still planning on the turnaround strategy, Armscor had to perform. And in as much as we know, there were orders that were made about Woofster. And because of the reduction of budgets, they couldn't make headway. The unfortunate part is just that they themselves are to blame, because they gave us a rosy picture as though things are beginning to shape up at that time, which was not true. And when we visited some of these entities, your dockyards within Armscor, we found that they were underutilized, not because of their own making, because there were no orders. Now they took a posture of saying, let's look outside of the NEL as well, to satisfy the needs of the SANDF. So in that context, I begin to understand why it became in the manner it is. Yeah, for the purposes of giving reports and all that, I understand that. But for the history has taught us what you see on the ground and what you see on paper have been two different things. That is why we are so incensed to say that there's a problem. And there is that upward mobility that we also pick up from Armscor side, because the NEL is beginning to pick up. And as you rightly said it, Chair, is that there are other orders that came. Yes, it is indeed quite painful to see some of our aircraft sitting in the manner that they did. At some point, it became laughable when we went to Simon's Town, when people were just painting that ship. He said, hey, this stuff here. You see? So there are those things that we really feel there's a need to take the SANDF very serious. And there was an area where we decided that certain projects must be reinvested according to budgets, so that they are able also to deliver in terms of the budgets that is available to DNL by the department. So I agree with the Honorable Muka when he says there is a need of collaboration in terms of the two to target certain areas, in as much as there's also a need to bring some of the private sector to utilize those entities. So I'm in that space where I understand their position. Equally, I'm not giving in to say there is an urgent need to recapitalize, because geopolitics are changing. And then before we know it, we'll also complain and say, now we are being under attack, we can't even man our own borders, and there'll be a host of complaints, whereas we will be part of the problem. Thank you very much, Chair.
Bond, I think you're the last person before there's comments. In fact, we're not like asking specific questions. It's just strategic discussions. Mr. Bond?
Thank you, Chair. I think the committee is very, very together as far as our sentiments go. And I think the one of the things that is very, very stark at the moment is, are we combat ready to actually protect our country? And what is Denel and what is Armscor doing about it to assist us? And that's exactly what everybody is saying. That is the major question. So from us, Chair, through you, I mean, we have said this, continually. We need the answers. Thank you.
All right. But these issues are not new. And who do I start with? Do I start with? I'll start with you, and then later, and then take the chair at the end. What do I do? What do I? Okay, let me start with. Well, let me start with DOT first, with defense, just to deal with those.
And then start with me.
And then come to you.
And then let the CEO wrap up.
Then this. Okay, that's fine. General Tundu, I'll start with you.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. This is not a question. This is a comment and, in a way, a suggestion. My suggestion, if you look at slide 39 of the DOT presentation, there is a results-based model. Now, the results-based model is sanctioned by TPM&E on behalf of all government. And I think there is a need, because that architecture, it will inform the business architecture of a public entity like the DOT and Armscor. And I think Armscor should follow those, they call it National Treasury revised frameworks, because it will force them to then do that results-based model, where you measure at the level of results. Before that, yes, before that we're on outcomes-based in government, but we're now on the results side, where we're measuring results. So that the performance indicator portfolio can then follow suit. Currently, it's inward looking. It creates a situation where there's a discharge. Armscor is performing and overperforming. And yet, the reason for which it exists according to the Act is that it is the sole, not partly, sole acquisition agent of the DoD to equip the force, to sustain that particular equipment. But the situation is such that the equipment is down and along. But the entity that is supposed to make sure that that equipment keeps operational and modernized is overperforming. There's a clear disjuncture, and I think it's around business architecture. Secondly, because I now see the appetite to go outside that and explore some commercial avenues to keep afloat something like that. We started with the environmental analysis as the SNDF and the DoD last week. What the environmental analysis, for the first time, we have looked at the defense industry. Let's understand the defense industry, probably directly, not through Armscor. What has come to the fore is that the defense industry currently, you had about 3,000 companies in South Africa before 1994, meaning the defense industry, across many capabilities. You now have the shrink down to 120. The 120th is Denel. In terms of the viability of the 119, they are almost all viable, except Denel. If you look at them, they can satisfy 70% of the SANDF requirements, 70%. And yet, for their survival, they have got an export portfolio of about 75%, meaning they are viable. And if you look at them also, they struggle across the domain capabilities of the SANDF, be it in the aeronautics environment, which is the Air Force, landward, cyber, and so on. So they are there. So that we must understand that it will not be a true statement we have learned last week when we said the defense industry of South Africa has imploded. No, Denel has imploded. But lastly, Chairperson, the business value chain of defense as a portfolio. Besides that, we've got defense that has got the SANDF as a main force. Then there's Armscor as an acquisition agent and a conduit to then reach to the defense industry. So that there is that causal relationship. DOD depends on Armscor. Armscor depends on Denel, and then you can take it back. Denel, Armscor, DOD. Now, the demise of Denel has not been an event. It has been coming for a long time. I remember 2010 when they presented, that time we were colonels, we told them, your business model is not going to help the South African Army at that point in time. At that, particularly on Project Vufista. But then the first people that are supposed to have that kind of intellectual diligence and vigilance is Armscor. So something has gone out of Armscor. They've lost that capability to then see just one company, to see that it is going down. I also want to argue, Honorable Chair, that at the time when Denel went down, the SDA, the scam was very big. It was billions of rands. So that it is also not true. We learned last week. It's not true that it was funding that made Denel to improve. It's something else. Unfortunately, we are now very hopeful that Denel is turning the corner, and yet they have not addressed these issues. I submit.
Thank you very much. See, this discussion, we've been missing them because they are not like dealing with macro issues. It's macro issues. Oh, sorry. These discussions are not dealing with micro issues. It's macro issues, and that will help us turn the corner. The story of Denel, I will tell you about it at some other point. When they say there's a turnaround strategy and what they are, that is predicated on, you would say, this is not going, it's not going to fly. Take it from me.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
I'll be very brief, but I want to say the easy part, I think, is this reporting methodology or structure that you want. I think that's simple. The points are taken. We don't have to argue. What we must do is just prepare that and bring it to you and say, is this how you want it? And I think, CEO, we can do that in a very short space of time. But I think the bigger question about the ecosystem, as the auditors like to put it, is where we should really be focusing. Because the reality is, Chair, we are a state-owned company. We are dependent on the government for funding, because that funding is really what sustains the SANDF. And if you've got a declining budget, we will not be able to service the SANDF's needs. And I think that is a political issue that government has to address. I'm not going to point fingers and try to say who to blame. But the reality is that if the government doesn't spend money on the SANDF, Armscor will not be able to do anything, because it is that money which goes to the capability of the SANDF. The question is, as I think Mr. Murray put it, is Armscor spending the money properly? That's the issue that we must account on. So I think that is a fundamental issue. Now, we've had interactions with the minister, and one of the things that has been promised this year, but I see we're running out of time, is this indaba for the defense industry. It's been discussed and put off. It's absolutely critical that we have it, because as the General was saying, there are good companies in our country who can service the SANDF. But there are two things constraining them. One is the question of the budget, because they do need to be paid to do the work. But the other is the whole issue of Denel. And as you put it, it's the elephant in the room. And the question is there a strategy that can fix Denel and turn Denel around? Because if there isn't, it's going to impact once again. So we have a vicious cycle, of defense, capabilities, execution like this. And I'm not saying that throwing money at the problem is what we want as Armscor. But what we want to do is to have a discussion like you've started today, where we begin to interrogate, because we must understand why Denel failed if you want to fix the problem. Number two, we've got to understand that our desire to focus outward is not driven by wanting to neglect the SANDF. It's a matter of survival, because as that budget declines, we've got to derive an income from somewhere to survive as an organization. Otherwise, you will lose the capabilities that Armscor has. So, it's not that we've become capitalists and we want to go and make money. It's a question of survival, that we, as Armscor, we realized we would have to augment our income by doing commercial work. It's not the scenario we like. It would be far better if the budget covered us 100%. But that's the real world we live in. So I want to say, Chair, that I think from our side as a board, what we would appreciate, and certainly now, because we're doing our handover report to the new board, we're busy with that process, is maybe to find some time to have this discussion with you so that we can put those inputs into what we give to the new board and what we give to the minister as we leave. I think from my point of view, not to do that would be to neglect our responsibility. But as I say, I think the points are all well made, and we certainly understand what the committee expects of us in terms of the reporting. I just want to say one last thing, Chair. Whenever I've worked in a number of state-owned entities and government departments, including NEDLAC and development agencies, you all know I'm a Marxist. So I tell people, one thing I must say is that my faith in the state as a Marxist has been severely shaken by my experience. One thing I want to tell you about Armscor that I've learned and come to appreciate, while it is a government agency or entity, it is run on very, very strict lines because of where it comes from. So it's one of the better institutions that we have in government. I'm not saying it's perfect, there are issues and so on. And for me, preserving that capability is crucial for the SANDF and for the defense of our country. We've got engineers, technicians, scientists, and that. As you said, Denel, we've lost so many of them. But we still have that core capability of Armscor. And I think preserving that has got to be one of our primary objectives as well. Thanks, Chair.
I agree with you 100%. Over to you, Advocate.
Chair, I will be brief, Chair. Chair, I'll just give you an illustration just to make the point. Of course, we did not report on it, but you'll be aware, Chair, that for the 2 submarines and a frigate for the refit, funding had to come from National Treasury to a tune of about 1.4 billion. To a tune of about 1.4 billion in this current financial year. When we were given that requirement around June, July, we are at a point, Chair, by end of this month, we will be finalizing the procurement process for the maintenance for the service providers that will then do the refit program. So that's the time it took us. Yeah. So coming back to the Air Force fleet again, it boils down to limited funding. I mean, there's one fleet, I'll make an example, that is being maintained by Denel. The current budget that is given towards that effort is the same amount that Denel were given in 2007. I mean, what will 100 rand in 2007? What will be the value of that money? Now, these are the realities that are there. Yes, you will have 2 aircrafts, Gripens, because those Gripens were purchased in around 1998, 2000. And there were particular dispensation and contracts that were entered into at that time. So the maintenance program as well, there are issues. But suffice to say that if the available budget is such that 2 or 3 will be serviceable. That's what the market will give you. Yes, we can negotiate, maybe get 5 and so on. But those are the issues that we need to, for me, we need to delve in deeper and understand these issues. As we are seated here, we are still waiting for the Air Force to give us an indication for the Roy Falk and Oryx. There is no support contract. The NEL is pushing to say, Armscor, give me an indication. We have written to the Air Force, no response. So these are the issues that we will obviously, if we want to fix the situation, we will also have to attend to. But I don't want to say more at this stage, unless therefore you like to. Okay. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. I don't know. Let's leave it at that for now. I think thank you very much, and we will certainly be monitoring the performance of the department going forward. I think we've gone over time. I think the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good. Let's do it. Just a coffee. And can the colleagues so that we adopt a program? We have not adopted our own program. And the minutes, just for 2 minutes. Okay, first. Sure. Come on. No, just, I'm sorry. I will need just adopt the program at least. And the minutes, Brian, we can deal with them next week. Yeah. Hey, Baba, sorry. Thank you so much. Are we still, do you still have a quorum? We still 2, 4, 5, 6, huh? Yes, we do. Yeah. Hey, colleagues, I'm presenting the program for adoption. Yes, just 1 minute of your time. Thanks so much. Thanks, man. Sure. Number Matutagas. Sure. Oh, I'm busy, man. This is right. Sure. Okay. Sure. Thank you so much.
Just what
thanks, man. That's a compliment. Sure. No, we did it. At least there is a report. Yes, they must submit the annual report. At least it's audit now. Yeah, some draft. Yeah, colleagues, I thought I should just table this program. You've all had sight of. We'll deal with the minutes at our last meeting. It's just that we need to adopt this program so that we know our program for the term. Right. So this is the program. Is there? It's just a one-page, colleagues. Next week is DMV and the NCCB, and you adopt the minutes. And that other week, we've asked the Chief Human Resources and Chief Army on the Mzimvubu matter. And then we deal with the B2R report for 2023. and we'll also have the briefing by the content advisor on the Commission of the Gender Equality activity report on Maputo protocol, and then we on the 1st of November update on the status of consequence management in relation in the DOD in relation to irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. You recall that that matter was on the agenda of the 2nd of it's we last dealt with this matter in November, on the 2nd of November last year. So it's just a follow-up. Update by the Provost Marshal General on the status of corruption and fraud cases in the DOD, and then we deal the minute. We take the minutes, and then we deal on the 8th of November. A briefing on by the DMV on its 23-24 second quarter expenditure performance. Engagement with the DMV Appeals Board on its operational challenges, and then we deal with the minutes. And then on the 15th of November, briefing by the DOD on its 23-24 second quarter expenditure performance, and we deal with the minutes. And then on the 22nd of November, briefing by DMV on its audit action plan, and briefing by the DMV on the consequence management, and then we take the minutes. And then the last is the oversight visit. We are going to Kimberley, and then we consider the legacy report. So I table this program for adoption, colleagues. Honorable Tabo.
We integrate it into the program. If the opportunity can be integrated to go to Luata so that we have a site as well as the committee of that particular unfortunate incident, as opposed to dealing with it at the later stage without having that site visited that particular place. I don't know. I want to support that proposal and see how we factor it into the program. Thank you. That's my submission.
Yes, Willem?
On that, Brian and I checked, Mr. Mutle. It is about 200 kilometers from Kimberley, so if you want, we can slot it in, maybe do an extra day when we do the Kimberley oversight visit. That does, however, mean we will only visit there at the end of November. But I'm just putting it out there as an option to form part of the visit to Kimberley for discussion for members.
Unless, well, let's do that. Have it, but if we can have it as in one of our Wednesdays, I don't know, because that's what Honorable Tabo is suggesting. By the way, we have a Friday, which is our day. Yeah. Sorry, we have a Friday, which is our day for the Joint Standing Committee on Defense. In fact, it meets on Friday, and no, it's Friday. Oh, it's Friday. Just talk to your colleagues there, and let's make it a Joint Standing Committee on Defense, so that we can then utilize that Friday day.
Like it's separate from this visit to that time.
Let's separate. Oh, you're asking a question now. Maybe that's one of the considerations. We'll then discuss it afterwards. Okay. Yes, Sir Tabo.
I don't think it will have impact if we start with the remember, we cannot go there in November. Must take this with the agencies. In fact, if we have to go, we must ensure that we go by next week. For the matter. So that we fix the I propose it to take Friday.
Okay. All right. Next week Friday or that other Friday, depending, because we still have to put in an application. All right. So, but we'll consider that. Bond.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not contributing to this, but Murray, before he left, he said, out of respect, I must just give his apology because he had another function. So he just asked me to apologize for him. And then I would like to just give my apology for next Wednesday because I have something else. But I will go through my whips and I will send you an email. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we get a mover of the program, Ms. Table?
Thank you, Chair. I move adoption of the program with amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's moved with amendments. Honorable Becker?
Thank you, Chair. I do second for the adoption of the program with all those amendments.
Thank you very much. And that takes us to the end of the minute. So the meeting is adjourned. Go on.
So it's a good meeting.
That's good.
We'll have to put in an application and check which Friday works best.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So then I'll speak to
Because it's usually, just check that.
It might.
It must not be a Friday that is linked to a sitting or anything critical.
Yeah, I will check, especially the NCOP program.
Oh, I see. That's
But
good.
yeah, it might, in the urgency of this thing, if things take long, it might require you to just pick up the phone to the chief work maybe. If need be, if we get there. But we'll try first.
For people, I think they didn't get much today.
I've